A quick note before we start the show today, folks. I'm in the process of creating a relationship retreat for listeners, and I would love your feedback about what would make such a retreat valuable for you. So if you've got a second, please do me the kindness of filling out a short survey. I think it'll take you less than 4 minutes, and I put a link to it in our show notes. I certainly appreciate it. And now on to the show.
We met online like 4 years ago, and we went on a date in person. We slept over that night. We liked each other so much. And then 4 days later, Thomas's dad died.
I'm Eric Newton, and this is Together, the podcast where we explore the truth about human relationships. As a divorce lawyer, I saw thousands of couples break up firsthand. These days, I'm not so interested in breaking couples up, nor in keeping them together. I'm interested in what our relationships can teach us about ourselves and the world that we live in. So on this show, we have honest conversations with real people about real relationships. There's a new line in my intro to the program that you may have noticed this season. It's where I say that I'm not so concerned about whether people stay together or break up. And I'll tell you, I've had rather strong reactions to that line. Some of you love it, and some of you hate it, and some of you just think it's bad marketing because, what people really want is to walk away into the sunset. But either way, it catches a lot of attention, so I figure it bears a little explanation. Now, it's true that over the course of these last couple of careers of mine, I seem to have learned a lot about what makes one relationship survive and another one come to an end. That said, I've also found that if I'm working from either one of those agendas in somebody else's relationship, it's equally empty. It's not really my place to have an agenda about that for someone else. What I think matters is consciousness. And look, that also is arbitrary in some sense, but I have to say I'm firmly and unrepentantly rooted in the camp of self-awareness. I vote for more of that. And a relationship is an excellent place to workshop and develop self-awareness, whether you stay or go. Now, the thing about the choice to stay or go in any given relationship is that we can never know what might have been otherwise. There's no control group to test against for happiness in our life choices. We only know what's right here and right now, and guessing about what might have been is usually a recipe for unhappiness. I can say, however, that either one of those choices in a relationship can definitely bear wonderful fruit. If you stay, working through the challenges will cause you to grow in ways that are just unavailable by doing anything else. If you go, new opportunities that are unimaginable right now are going to flower in your life. That's just what happens. Either way, life can and will be absolutely exquisite if you allow it to. So how do you choose? Well, we've presented a few interviews on this question lately, and this is the last one for a time. Next week we're turning to pornography, so stay tuned for that. Our guests this week are facing the same question. How do you know when it's right, and how do you know when it's wrong? In some sense, you never can. All you can do is take the best action you know how to take. Now, Thomas and Lauren, our guests this week, moved very quickly in the beginning of their relationship, and here's Lauren telling us why that seemed like the right move.
I didn't really have a set of actions to take for what to do when the guy that you've been dating crazily for 4 days, dad dies. What am I to him? And do I just let him deal with it? Or do I act like I'm some sort of really close person to him and go through it with him? Whatever I do in that situation is going to set the tone of our relationship.
Yeah. Your options were support him from afar.
Right.
I guess leave him or,
Well,
break it off, but that's not really.
I don't really have the urge to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So it was basically support him from afar.
But honestly, I feel like if I would have just supported him from afar, I might as well have just broken up with him, because if I'm not going to do everything, then I shouldn't do anything at all. And I
I mean, that's a powerful position to take, but I can imagine a lot of people not thinking that.
I felt like that was just lame. Like I felt like maybe this is an opportunity to show who I am and how and what I can do, like how I can help others.
Now, a short time after that, these two moved in together. As with everything in their relationship to that point, things were moving very, very quickly. Now, incidentally, it's a fun story about how they moved in, and if you'd like to hear it, we're going to post it as a clip to our Patreon page for subscribers. Now, once they did move in together, the challenges began to manifest. Lauren says it was a period of time characterized by, well, a lot of fighting. But they each had very different experiences of those challenges at that time.
I mean, I'd rather go through a relationship that ends where I had an experience or I grew or whatever than a relationship that is easy and that just goes on. And I think that the conflict is where I get the fulfillment of being in the relationship. If it never came up, I would have no reason to stay.
What about happiness and ease in a relationship? Where does that fit into what you're saying?
It sounds boring. I don't know what that is. I don't get it.
I mean, I think from what I understand of Lauren's life, that you didn't really have that.
What?
Like ease in your home life or in your parents' life. And
yeah.
And so aren't really used to it. I had a sort of weird piece in that my, ever since, from the time I was born until when I was maybe 14 or so, my mom was working full-time, sometimes more than full-time, to provide for the family. So I ended up spending a lot of time alone. So I sort of think of that as like what I'm used to and sort of what I like in a way. I just like being, like having a quiet space. But when you say like you don't, Lauren, you don't like aim or something for happiness and like peace or whatever, I'm like, no, that's kind of my aim. And I don't know if that's from like thinking of TV show families or something, or my friends and neighbors or people. But I'm like, I have felt like I want less conflict. Like I'd be willing to have less growth for less conflict.
What does your ideal relationship look like, Lauren?
I don't know that I've really given that a lot of thought.
Most people haven't.
Yeah. But when I think about the kinds of like images or experiences that make me feel like I want that relationship, it kind of just feels like very much about exploration.
Emotional?
Like all kinds. Like someone that I get to learn more and more about over time, and someone that wants to together go out into the world and learn more and more things about the world and face scary, again, I think it's almost like the hero's journey again. Like it's about a partner to go and have adventures with, and to have a teammate that is flawed, but you fight and you learn about each other and you figure out a way to like continue the adventure.
And the idea of happiness doesn't fit into that. That's not an expression of happiness.
Well, no, yeah, that I think is like that those images are what I think of when I try to think of being in a happy relationship.
Got it.
So that's like for me, that's happiness, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not like being at home and being calm and having and making a dinner or something.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying those are mutually exclusive. I mean, I like eating dinner too, and cooking.
And having some quiet time at home occasionally. Maybe not.
Sure. Once in a while. I mean, adventures can be happening while it's quiet too. I'm making it sound like it has to be like Lord of the Rings literally or something, but so maybe we're talking about the same thing. Like you're going on adventures like in your mind while you're at home being peaceful. Is that kind of what's happening? Or
Well, that's an interesting question. Like, yeah, in a way, because that's how I spent my childhood, like always thinking or inventing or imagining new stuff. And when you say like you want a partner like to go on adventures with and things like that, I think that's what I want in a partner. It still feels like in our case, like the adventures themselves are like still too stressful. Like, I don't know. I think I take everything and make it basically maybe in a both a good and a bad way, like make it more relaxed. Like I've thought sometimes that like if I was on a deserted island or like apocalypse happens or something like, and people get divided up into like who they really are and what you need them for. I would not be good at a lot of physical labor stuff, and I'm not the most smart person, but I can take a lot of difficulty. Like I can put up with a lot, and I can also emotionally like sort of deal with things like like I think I could be a good first responder or something, like see traumatic stuff and like put that aside, get the work done, and then hopefully deal with the emotional stuff later. But I don't do that because I don't want to have to do that all the time. I don't want to have to be dealing with like kind of an emergency type of life. And I feel like somehow we get into those sort of situations, our conflicts sort of rise and bubble in a way that I'm like, can't we just like walk away from this for a little bit? Can't we just let this go? And somehow we don't. And it seems lately it feels like not like we can't, not in a way that's like we're bad people or something, but we've been sort of talking about it as an addiction, kind of from both sides.
Yeah.
And I can really, I spent my childhood growing up with an alcoholic, going to AA meetings and Al-Anon meetings, and then my dad became an alcohol and drug abuse counselor. So I've read tons of books and been in all these meetings and heard all this literature, and can really see that kind of thing in people. And I see that in me in this relationship. Like, I've recognized that I'll see the healthy path to go on in our conversation or in our relationship, and I don't take it. And I'm like, it's like the alcoholic picking up the drink that they know is bad for them. And it's like, so sometimes it feels like, well, I just have to, not be around this person who's like an addiction for me.
So what is your status?
I don't even know what are the options. Is it like this, but can I choose like it's complicated?
I suppose they're infinite, really. Yeah.
What is the status? Ugh, I don't know, and I don't want to know, and I don't want to have one. We're like post status right now. We're like
we're like totally beyond status.
You've transcended status.
Yes.
We don't subscribe to your belief in status. But physically, this morning when I woke up and had breakfast, I had breakfast in Alamo Square, and Lauren had it in Excelsior.
So you woke up in different places,
Yeah.
is the point.
So we're staying in different houses.
Right. We live apart. I think a big part of this setup is, for me, realizing that the support that I so desperately want and need cannot come from any man, any partner, anyone else other than me.
Yeah. So for you, too, getting distance has been vital because it's the only way for you to finally come to terms with this fact that you know, obviously intellectually,
Yeah.
but somehow don't have it all the way through yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make it sort of the long version. I grew up, as a kid, I was abandoned consistently by my parents. And I think that so what I experience now in my life is this sort of very, very deep fear and panic for my very survival. And
When anything feels like abandonment.
yes, when anything feels like abandonment.
Yeah.
And this distance, living apart, has been this amazing proof for me that I can survive abandonment because I'm an adult now.
High five. Holy shit, that's amazing.
And it's been awesome. Like, truly. Like, I have a beautiful home and I can do whatever I want now. I grew up and I left that shithole. And I'm good. Like, I'm good whether you're here or not. And I just have to keep, like, I try to keep being aware of that. When things feel really horrible and I feel like I'm being abandoned and I'm going to die, I have to look around and say, actually, I'm just sitting on my bed in my room, in my house that I pay for. And, like, I'm going to go to my job tomorrow because I'm an able adult. That's actually the reality. Like, I'm not gonna, like, and that's my constant life struggle, is to, like, try to observe my reality as it actually is, rather than to relive a story from my childhood. That's my entire journey, is just that.
Oh, it's just so beautiful. So you had this realization. First, you had it intellectually because you realized it at some point, maybe in therapy or something. And then he moved out, which at first must have felt terrifying.
Oh, yeah. I was literally sick. Like, I was vomiting and I had digestion issues and I was rejecting, like, I don't know. My body was telling me something was very, very wrong.
Yeah. By his moving.
Yeah.
And then
what happened?
What happened for you to make the shift from the vomiting to holy cow, this is the best thing he could have done?
Yeah. I have, at the time, this was only a month ago, so I recently stopped going to my counselor that I had for a while, but at the time I had a counselor, and so she's online, so I write messages to her, like long messages, like, especially if I'm feeling really panicked, I'll just write a lot, and then she'll respond, like, later on, and that's totally fine. But she would just respond, like, supportively, and the pattern that I noticed, even through all of that panic, was that I was always okay afterwards. Like, I know it sounds really obvious, but
No, this is huge, and people don't see it. So keep talking.
I would write, and then she would respond the next day and say, I want to see how you're doing now. Read your message. And I would say, I'm doing okay now.
Yeah.
And she'd say, great. Well, you made it through and that's so great. And like, you're doing a great job. And she would be supportive. The fact that I was just alive, I guess.
Yeah.
And, I don't know.
But the insight for you was, oh, I actually am okay. Even though this thing that was so terrifying and seemed so life-threatening occurred, I'm actually okay. I'm on my bed. I'm in this house I pay for.
yeah,
It clicked. It clicked over for you more than just intellectually.
that realization comes from having practiced at least for a few months now, just like my general mindfulness. Like, I got this app that helps you do like a guided meditation for 10 minutes. And it's really just about being aware of your reality.
Yeah.
And I realized when I started doing those meditations that I'm not in reality like pretty much all the time.
Yes.
And
yes.
And I've had like brief, like even during the meditation, it's
Yeah.
like you think it's going to be like if for 10 minutes I'm like totally in reality. No, I've had like maybe like a half a second
Yeah.
little glimpse of reality.
Yeah.
I've had a little glimpse. So that's how I know it's there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I can't really say I've been
It's
aware
Yeah.
for my whole life, pretty much.
Wow. Awareness of awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes a situation like this can be really powerful, and sometimes a situation like this can feel like sitting on the fence and not making a decision, quote unquote, either way. For you right now, this is a proactive, powerful stance, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Is there anything about it that's uncomfortable that I am missing?
About
you
what?
mean not proactively uncomfortable, or?
Yeah, like I can imagine somebody listening to this and saying, well, they're not in and they're not out. They need to choose. And I actually don't have that assessment that you need to choose. I think that this sounds like a really powerful place for you guys to be right now. But I can imagine somebody saying that. And I can also imagine this getting to that point. Like at some point,
This
this
relationship?
status, the status of the relationship, whatever
Yeah.
the quote unquote status is,
Yeah.
could ultimately feel like you're not choosing, you're in inertia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any element of that present now that I'm not picking up on?
Yeah, well, I've been very about that whole mindset for pretty much my whole life until very recently. I think I've had this really strong desire for marriage and for kids as a sign to me that like this guy really loves me and is going to give me the validation and the support that I never got and that I so deserve as such a wonderful woman and all this.
And you say that with a sarcastic frown on your face. So how do you see that now?
That's such a cop out. Like that takes away my opportunity to provide that for myself.
So great.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Like I'm so glad I never had a guy that like just professed to be like my all caretaker person provider. I'm so glad because I never would have gotten the chance to go through the struggle that I got to go through.
Yeah.
Learn about myself and stuff. So yeah, I'm about being gentle with myself and you, Thomas, and not forcing us to like make some grand declaration or some long-term decision about something that we can't make. Like marriage, like I'm going to love you forever is never true. You don't know what you will feel later. You don't know what you'll feel in 5 minutes. Like, and even if you are married, and I don't know about everybody, whatever, but you'll have times where you don't love each other. Like, where you don't feel like the love that you maybe imagine that you have somewhere underneath the surface. But that's an abstraction. That's something we make up that like under or around or on top of all of this stress that I currently feel, I really do love you. Like I don't know that I really have that. I'm like feeling what I'm feeling right now. And other than that, I don't really care. I don't really have other background feelings. I'm really just in it right now. That's all I can offer you.
I can't even like help Lauren very much with her wounds other than in encouraging her to be healthy on her own. Much less.
That's all of the help that I would ever ask for from you, by the way. I don't want like the other help, whatever else you were talking about. I don't probably want that.
Yeah.
Even though you've asked for it during conflict when you guys were living together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've asked for probably a lot of weird things.
Yeah. And like I said,
I've asked you to save me from my feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And I've seen myself say like, this is a bad idea, and I'm going to do it anyway. We even had a date a while back, like maybe right after I moved out, that we just came together again, and Lauren was like, this was probably a bad idea. I should not have called you. You should not have come. And I was like, yep.
Did you turn around and leave?
I didn't.
But listen, like we were doing something kind of compulsive and unhealthy, but we were, instead of like actively like yelling and just being in the cycle, we took a little moment out and we're like, we're doing the thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we are.
Wow.
And that was really cool.
Yeah.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to go way back to the other question, like, why are we still continuing this weird thing? Because of that moment. That moment. Because we're doing a podcast now. Like, what else do you... None of my other relationships would have been worth a podcast.
How sweet.
Sorry, every ex-girlfriend. You were great.
We recorded this interview nearly a year ago, and I just checked in with Thomas to see how things are going. He says that they still care very much about one another, but that they're in a period of no contact and that they're living in different cities. Now, you probably have opinions about what these two should or shouldn't have done, or whether they should stay together or not, and that's normal. But I think we have to remind ourselves that most of the time, we don't really know what people should do. And in cases like this one specifically, there's really no right answer. There's only an opportunity to live more consciously and, if I may say so, lovingly. And if nothing else, that is the game that these two are playing. If you liked what you heard on the show today, please do subscribe. It's not free to produce this show, and I would absolutely love your support. And if you've got any questions or comments, or if you just want to connect, you can find us on social media. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both @together_show. And you can always email me directly at host@together.guide. The music on today's episode, I'm very excited to say, was provided courtesy of a gentleman who goes by the title Squire Tuck. You can find him at soundcloud.com/Squire-Tuck. And he spells Squire funny. It's SQUIER-Tuck. And I'll put a link to that in our show notes. He's a super nice guy and he makes great music. So I encourage you to go check it out. Well, that's all for today, folks. Talk to you next week.